You don't find homes like you do in Boston that were built, or St. Augustine, or wherever they were built like really long time ago. Because one,
it's been burned to the ground twice.
it's been burned down.
Welcome to A.T.L, All Things Local, the podcast where two Atlanta natives take a deep dive into the heart of Atlanta communities and neighborhoods. I'm Mincey, your go-to Atlanta realtor.
And I'm Jeff Goddard, your trusted lender. Together, we're here to give you the inside scoop on areas in A.T.L, from their rich histories to their contemporary amenities.
So sit back and relax while we explore all that Atlanta has to offer.
Okay. Welcome, everybody, to A.T.L, All Things Local, where me, Jeffy, and him, Mincey, talk about Atlanta neighborhoods. What do you think about that, Mincey?
Well, first off, thank you for tuning in. Every week, we're going to take a deep dive into a different neighborhood, tell you a little bit not only about how that neighborhood exists today, what it would be like to live in that neighborhood, but also a little bit of a history lesson on the neighborhood, maybe fun facts we discover along the way. I'm lucky enough to partner with an Atlanta native, real estate retiree, but lending guru now, Mr. Jeffy, a.k.a. Jeff Goddard.
And you're an Atlanta native too, Mincey, right?
Yeah, I'm a Georgia native.
A Georgia native. I got you. So you know everything, not just Atlanta. You know the whole state.
You could have just stopped at I know everything.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, there is that too. Yeah. And you are a very successful real estate agent currently, and I'm a recovering one. You kind of know what's really happening, and I know what it used to be like before we could just do everything on our phones. So if you got any questions about real estate, want to buy and sell real estate, Mincey's your guy. I can help with the financing, and we can always talk Atlanta real estate with you guys. Today we're going to talk about which neighborhood?
We're going to talk about Coca Cola Park,
a.k.a. Candler Park, because
of Asa Candler,
who founded Coca Cola. Most of you probably know that. If you're not from Atlanta, maybe you don't. But a lot of things around Atlanta are Candler this and Candler that, and Coke is everywhere. So
there's even a whole neighborhood named after them.
Yeah.
It's called Candler Park. And Candler Park's a really great place to live.
When I was a real estate agent, I used to tell people this is my favorite neighborhood in all of Atlanta.
Why was it your favorite neighborhood?
Because you could afford to live there.
Back in the day.
But you still can today. There were expensive homes there, but there were also ways to live there affordably. There was affordable rental property. You know, for example, today I just saw a $240,000 two-bed, one-bath condominium right next to the park in Candler Park. That's pretty affordable to be right in the middle of town, next to a lot of amenities, close to the Beltline, close to the MARTA line. Yeah. Between downtown Decatur and downtown Atlanta. That's a really good price. And you can also spend over $2 million on a nice new home there. There is a lot to be said for the diversity, not just of the people, but of the types of homes you can either rent or purchase in that neighborhood. What I loved about it was that it does have like a nice little walkable downtownish area. I mean, it's not huge.
It's very cute, yeah.
It's small. There's a market, a place to get coffee, and
there's the original Flying Biscuit. There's Gigi's Italian.
Oh, I didn't know about that one. That's new.
Oh, yeah. So good. If you like Italian food, it's an amazing restaurant.
And then there's that piercing studio that I think is just a front for something because nobody ever goes in there. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know what money laundering was going on there. If that was your shop, I'm sorry. I'm just...
The old Candler Market?
No. Next to the Candler Market. It was like... anyway. So, yeah, Candler Park has a lot to offer, including a park with a golf course.
That's right. A 9-hole course.
Public golf course.
Anybody can go up there. It is a walking course.
I don't think they have golf carts.
I don't believe they do. It's a really great place to live because it's got a ton of different walks of life that all live there. It's a very active community because you have Freedom Trail. You can be to the Beltline in half a mile, maybe a mile. That same trail takes you all the way out to Stone Mountain. You have affordability spectrums. Like you were saying, that you do have these wonderful Victorians. You have Craftsman's 1900 to 1920 that are been renovated, and then you also have homes that were built in the early 2000s and new homes being built there. But also, it's got a really good elementary school. Mary Lynn is a very good school.
My daughter went there.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, she turned out great.
Yeah, despite Mary Lynn. I'm just kidding. Mary Lynn was fantastic. For those of you that have kids, I didn't know this until having a kid go through school. That's kind of the last of her school I really remember, because after elementary school, everything just happened so fast.
Mary Lynn's been recently renovated. I haven't been since the renovations, but it's beautiful. You also have a lot of history. You've got a MARTA stop right there too.
A lot of Civil War history.
A lot of Civil War history.
That area in the park that we're going to talk about, Rose Hill, was actually part of the encampment during the Civil War. Civil War buffs go all up and down that strip of land between Decatur and Atlanta looking for old artifacts. And that's kind of right in the heart of that east-west movement for the Battle of Atlanta.
Yeah. And it's another neighborhood too that just sits right there. You know, it's 5 minutes from Ponce City Market. It's minutes from Emory.
Just
Could be
Clifton.
Yeah, straight up Clifton, right? So you've got Briarcliff right there. You've got Ponce right there. You've got Moreland. You've got DeKalb Avenue.
You can get to the connector super fast, be at the airport in 20 minutes. Those are all the reasons why I thought it was my favorite neighborhood in all of Atlanta.
It's a beautiful neighborhood, and especially they've got homes that line Freedom Park that just kind of have this really nice feeling. Those are probably on the higher end as far as price point goes. I would say those are in the $1 to $3 million range. But Candler Park is a really big park. It has a lot to offer. Like you said, it has a 9-hole golf course. It's got 2 different basketball courts, which I used to play every Sunday. It's got tennis courts. It's got a playground. It's got a public pool, and it's just a really good area to walk in. And that trail of Freedom Trail kind of, blends through it in a really elegant and beautiful way. It's really good to run and bike, and it feels really nice.
Yeah, it's a great neighborhood. I can't say anything bad about Candler Park. All right. How about we talk about a little of the history of Candler Park, Adam?
Yeah, absolutely. So originally founded as Edgewood in the late 19th century, Edgewood grew a lot. It was one of those neighborhoods that the Georgia Railroad ran through. There was a stop there called Mason's Crossing.
Edgewood was its own town at one point.
That's right. Edgewood was its own town separate from city of Atlanta.
Which in my old real estate days, there are homes. Well, first off, Atlanta is a very young city. You don't find homes like you do in Boston that were built, or St. Augustine, or wherever they were built like really long time ago. Because one,
it's been burned to the ground twice.
It's been burned down.
Yeah.
But the town of Edgewood was not burned in 1865. The orders were to burn Atlanta, and Edgewood was a specific separate municipality. It was annexed by the city of Atlanta long after the war. I didn't know until getting ready for this podcast that Candler Park was part of Edgewood. But in Edgewood, you can find homes that are older than 1865, which is something you don't find in Atlanta very often, or in and around Atlanta, unless you get up to like Marietta or somewhere like that.
Yeah. I think one thing that you were mentioning earlier as we were kind of preparing for this is Rose Hill.
Interesting racial history, and that's one thing that I think the more neighborhoods we cover in Atlanta, the more I realize how complex the racial history is of our town. And it makes me wonder how it is in lots of towns. Like you hear about Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the racial history there that people don't talk about very much. I think there's a lot of racial history in a lot of towns, but we're focusing on Atlanta, which was in the South, the major point in the Civil War.
Yeah.
We talk about all these neighborhoods, and there seems to be some racial history component. Now, the Candler Park, what is it? The Candler Park Conservancy? Is that the name of that group? Anyway, they have a biracial historical study or something that's gone on. That's online. It's pretty interesting to look up. Before Candler Park was developed into the homes we see today, built in the early 20th century, in the late 1800s, the southeast and southwest portions of the park, specifically the southwest portion of Candler Park, was known as Rose Hill, was an African-American neighborhood. the people there, according to what we were reading on the Conservancy website, had jobs as chauffeurs and maids and other things like that. And they started the East Antioch Church, which was on Mason Drive, now Candler Park Drive. I believe the original one was on Oakdale, and that burned down in the 1800s, and they built the new, what's now it's Universalist Church, First Existentialist Church. It's a really pretty granite building facing the park on Candler Park Drive, and that was built for the Antioch Church in the early 1900s. It really served as a church for that Rose Hill community. When Asa Candler donated the rest of the land around Rose Hill that became the park, it effectively inhibited Rose Hill and those African-American neighborhoods from expanding. One of the questions that comes to my mind is, was that intentional, or was that just an undesirable side effect, or desirable depending on what opinion you had at the time? Yeah. Were they trying to inhibit Rose Hill from growing, or was that just an undesirable side effect of that? The more important thing, I think, is this legislation that was passed, the slum clearance of Rose Hill. What was the legislation that Atlanta passed?
In 1942, Atlanta's slum clearance ordinance declared many old structures nuisances to be torn down. The city claimed the lots and demolished all the remaining structures in the once vibrant Rose Hill and Mason subdivision. And so this is exactly where the basketball court right off of McClendon and Candler, where we have Candler Park Music Festival and the Fall Festival, that was where Rose Hill was, all the way up until 1942.
Yeah, so a couple decades before civil rights movement, but still, it's shocking to see some of the blatant racism and ways people were treated by city ordinances. Mm-hmm. And that goes right up through the 1960s, when we had the Interstate Highway Act of 65, and then Candler Park was actually kind of at the epicenter of the I-485 scandal, a.k.a. the Presidential Parkway.
Yeah, and that's wild to me, the Presidential Parkway.
The Carter Presidential Parkway.
Yeah, well, yeah. And I think you mentioned that Carter wanted to have his name taken off of it for his own reason of, it didn't happen.
Yeah, the Olympics had a big part of it kind of getting made into something nice. But I went to school right next to Candler Park. All the kids around there would wear shirts in the late 80s that said, "Save Atlanta's in-town neighborhoods." In the mid-60s, there was a huge push to increase the number of highways in all the cities around America. One of them that was proposed was going to go from the connector, where 75 and 85 are together in downtown Atlanta, and basically go through these in-town neighborhoods, through Ponce Highland, Inman Park, the north part of Candler Park. It would have gone right through where Mary Lynn Elementary School is, cut across Ponce, basically bypassing the city of Decatur.
Through Fernbank
Forest, getting very close to Emory University, CDC, and then connecting with Stone Mountain Freeway. When you look at it on the map, you're like, wow, that would be a very convenient highway.
I live in North Decatur, and
that would be very convenient.
I work near Candler Park, right? Like, I work 5 minutes from Candler Park.
But if you look at all the neighborhoods it cuts through, you're like, I can't imagine raising all those houses just to put a road in. Ultimately, the controversy caused Jimmy Carter to say, take my name off this road. The way that Georgia 10, or Freedom Parkway, as we call it now, turned out, it is pretty functional. You don't have to get off 75, 85 in the middle of downtown. You can get off just before it and bypass some of that, and then get to another major thoroughfare.
485, and that's the important thing, because it was going to go directly through the middle of Mary Lynn, and Mary Lynn still sits there today. It was going to go straight through Candler Park Golf Course, so that would have been gone as well. So the park would have been significantly smaller. The neighborhood of Candler Park would probably be vastly different as far as home values and people wanting to live there, the desire to live there. It would probably be very different.
It wasn't just a road. This is what I remember in the late 80s. The strip of land that is now Freedom Park had already been cleared for the freeway before the lawsuit finally stopped it from proceeding. And so in the late 80s, that was all barren land, and there were these huge 40-foot tall concrete structures because the highway was going to be an elevated highway going through there. They just hadn't put the road on top yet.
That's wild.
And then the 96 Olympics were announced.
Yeah.
And, the city decided we better make this look like we know what we're doing. So they tore all that down and put down a bunch of grass and put in some bike trails, and now it's a nice little park.
Hey, Freedom Park.
Hey.
Look at that.
It looks like it was intentional.
Hey, it does. It does. I mean, well, kind of. I mean,
it was intentional.
Yeah, it does just kind of sit there. And same with the Carter Center. When you come up to it, you're like, I mean, I've had great memories in Freedom Park. I used to live in Ponce Highland, which is an adjacent neighborhood to Candler Park. And I would run Freedom Trail all the time, bike Freedom Trail all the time. It really is a lovely place to I mean, it's just a beautiful run walk area. It's very shaded, so it's good during the summertime. It takes you down the Olmsted linear parks, kind of leading into Druid Hills. And there's just these beautiful estates as you kind of get into Druid Hills.
Mm-hmm.
And Candler Park as a whole is just a wonderful neighborhood. I mean, it's got this kind of romantic feel as you drive the neighborhoods of old Atlanta, meeting with the newer piece of Atlanta.
The mail carrier still comes to your door unless you've purchased a new home and had to put the mailbox at the street.
Yeah, the mailboxes are still in the houses. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it's still got the granite curbs like many Atlanta neighborhoods. It doesn't have a ton of retail or restaurants, but what it does have are kind of the staples. It's got Fellini's, a local chain of pizza, but it's a good one. Yeah, we love Fellini's here in Atlanta. And then it's got La Fonda, which is kind of a Cuban-inspired. They've got great paella. It's got the original Flying Biscuit there, which is famous.
It's close to the shops at Edgewood.
It's close to so many things. It's close to Pond City Market. Yeah. It's close to the Beltline, which has a ton of development on it. The Edgewood, it used to be part of Edgewood, and the Edgewood Shopping Center District does have a couple big box stores that are close by. So that would be
closest decent-sized grocery store.
Yeah, you could shoot up Ponce and go to Publix, the one in Ponce Highland. Neighboring neighborhoods would be Lake Claire.
Yeah, Candler Park and Lake Claire are very similar neighborhoods. There is a bit of a bohemian vibe to them too. But you do have newer construction homes, but there is still this remaining bohemian vibe to Candler Park and Lake Claire. There's the land trust and a lot of older homes.
How do we not talk about the land trust? I mean,
land trust is amazing.
I asked one of my colleagues, do you like Candler Park?
Officially, it's not in Candler Park.
Well, it is. It's in Lake Claire. But I said, what do you think about Candler Park? She goes, I love Candler Park. I go, great. Tell me a story about Candler Park. She goes, it's the old hippie neighborhood. And she lives in Decatur. So that was just funny. And it does have that kind of bohemian hippie vibe.
Yeah, it does. It's a little bit of everything. I think if I had to sum up Candler Park about why I like it, it's proximity to really everything that's important to a lot of people and variety. You can get the $250,000 condo. You can get the $2.5 million new construction. You can get the 1920s bungalow that still has the big wide hallway that goes right down the middle with the transom windows to let the air flow through. Or you can get the 1920s bungalow that's been updated with all the modern amenities. There really is a lot of diversity in terms of types of homes that can be purchased.
If you are interested in moving to the Candler Park neighborhood or its surrounding neighborhoods, Jeff knows how to write a mortgage, and I know how to assist you through that buying process. And we keep on top of our local real estate market, so don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Take care, everyone. See you next time on All Things Local.